Can I ask it like, because you also experienced that giant store scale up, right? So you're at what point in time on that store, like how many stores would you say you were at where you really started feeling like, you know, like it is starting to, where you're starting to lose the transparency of being able to get ahead of putting the right inventory levels on the shelves that to make sure the cash flow was moving at an appropriate level?
I'd say about around store number four. Because after that, like I was creating more and more like literally more tabs on the same spreadsheet to look at all this data. And especially taking over Massachusetts, where I went from 4 vendors in Connecticut to I basically established and maintained 40 vendor relationships in Massachusetts. So being able to look at that market, which is just so different than the Connecticut market, you know, we're selling the same thing, but the process to get those same things is wildly different. In Connecticut, we have a few more vendors now, but still very set amount of vendors with set delivery schedules, with set product availability, with set costs. There's not a lot of creative things you can do in building a menu in Connecticut right now. Versus Massachusetts, there's this tremendous amount of supply from a great amount of vendors hitting all different categories that don't necessarily even exist in Connecticut. So being able to find the right mix in Massachusetts, but also be able to manage those relationships and the data at the same time as Connecticut, where we have more stores, but less inventory to choose from.
In absence of having tooling that's helping you figure out that mix and figure out the demand, how do you do it?
Pretty much pulling transaction data and just scrubbing it clean, getting it organized the best I can, and honestly, a bit of shooting from the hip, and just trusting my gut, and trusting the data I have in front of me without really truly having the full picture in front of me to work with.
Got it. Got it. And then talk to me about time, at that Ford stores to try to get yourself to a place where you were comfortable with, and then we're not even talking about 11 stores, right? Just even like starting on that scale up where you were like, I feel like this is good enough. How much time in terms of exporting, data aggregation, pivot tabling did it take to get to that level?
I'd say 30 minutes per day to get every spreadsheet set up for the day. And then, the ordering process from a vendor, depending on their amount of inventory, could vary from 30 minutes to 90 minutes, sometimes 2 hours, going through each SKU, going into our point of sale, basically doing back of the napkin run rates by looking at transaction history on that package, on that product, and then trying to sort of keep track of the category level information that again, it just was not accessible in our point of sale at that time. Just trying to figure out looking at costs versus units, trying to again try to look at velocity over time and anticipate what that could look like going forward by looking backward. But the backwards look is just so limited because there isn't enough time to really look at those trends.
Yeah, 100%. And can you ask you like in that process, in at times at which any mistakes or any things or any times where you got it off, what were those downstream effects that would kind of bubble back up that you normally get from like either the bud tenders or the GMs or the customers, or like what were those like symptoms of the
Absolutely.
problem? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely sitting on too much inventory of one particular SKU that just from my little bit of data analysis seemed like it was going to be a good investment, and then you find out it's not, and now you're dealing with discounting it and marketing it and trying to find a way to move it, because there's nothing worse than inventory getting dusty in the vault. Especially, I try to target 14 to 21 day supply for each SKU so that our standard net 30 terms we're meeting those terms and have already turned the inventory, made our cash back, and ideally made a good profit on that investment. So, being able to manage that across so many stores and so many SKUs just becomes a mountain of data to wrangle.
Yeah, 100%. I think you hit on a couple good things there of the like classic, like the urgency of we have a lot of this stuff sitting around and we need to get it off the shelf quickly. And then all of a sudden, like you kind of get these like little like everyone, 50% off BOGO, like liquidated out the side of the door, or you're like trying to wrangle the brand to try to cover like, well, why didn't that move type of stuff, and you're constantly putting out like those little like fires, right? As
Totally.
opposed to like had you just like had the information to make the investment correct in the first place, like you wouldn't be in the world where you're looking for all these ways to try to liquidate all this stuff as fast as you possibly can to cover the terms, essentially.
Absolutely. And it's not good for anyone that happens. It can ruin brand integrity if we're carrying a brand and it's consistently on discount or special because we just have too much of it at every point in time. It also creates, I think, customer confusion if the same product seems to be at different price points every time they come in because it depends on how much you may have overbought the last time and what you set the price point to. So keeping the right amount of product at the right time is the best thing, obviously, for the retailer, the vendor and brand, and the customer in the end too.
Got it. Wow, that's awesome. Or I would say, sorry, like, I think what you're hitting at are those like things that seem to echo out throughout the industry in a lot of ways, right? That like because this is such a pervasive issue and trying to get this correct, like it is starting to erode that brand integrity for those brands. It is starting to cause relationships between retailers and vendors to be sometimes more combative than they need to be. And I think overall, just like the consumer's the one who they're losing the like understanding of what the actual price of the thing should actually be,
Yep,
right?
absolutely. And they're losing, they may lose trust in a vendor if you don't have the thing they love in stock consistently. Especially if you completely run out of a brand that they love, they may find another retailer that has it, and you had a loyal customer, now you lost them because you weren't managing your inventory well.
100%.